everybody. We are so excited today to be back on the podcast talking about the new Watership Down miniseries. My friend Erin is here with me, and we had previously covered the 1978 film, the classic, kind of very interesting adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to talking about this new version. And Erin, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome. Back by popular demand.
That's right. So, if you guys haven't listened to our previous podcast on the, like I said, the 1978 film, talking also about the book, make sure I'll put a link down in the description. Make sure you check that out. It just to kind of recap, though, Erin, you really love that original film, correct?
I do. It's my favorite animated film of all time, in fact.
Yeah. What is it that you love about Watership Down?
I think the uniqueness of it, which I think is something that I mentioned in in our previous review. I love the voice acting. I love John Hurt as a rabbit. That's very nice. I love Bright Eyes by Art Garfunkel. I love how it's dark, kind of a horror movie for kids in some spots. But I will get more into that stuff once we go to the miniseries. But yeah, I love it. Yeah, absolutely.
It's really great.
It's a good Easter movie.
Yeah. I mean, you might want to prepare your children for something different.
Yes, don't just sit them in front of the TV with this, because they might get traumatized.
Right. And I really, really enjoy the 1978 film. I love the book. I think it's a book that has so many layers to it. That every time you read it, you can get new things out of it. Exactly. And that it has a lot to say about about how we think and how we can be manipulated, and how and the leadership.
Totally right.
And that's what I think is so brilliant about it. And it's a book that's sort of easy to discount, because people say, oh, it's just the bunny book, but it's got so much more than that.
I was never really into rabbits per se. Like, I'm an animal person, and anyone who visits my Twitter will know that. But rabbits, I never really thought of them until I read the book, and I was like, well, darn, like now I'm gonna think every rabbit's British and very intelligent.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and it's not really about rabbits.
Sure,
just about it's about group kind of think, and how they all the different types of sort of systems of manipulation and leadership and control that they meet kind of along the way, and also the relationships between, particularly Fiver and Hazel is the main sort of relationship, and so then we get this new version that's in CGI animation, and that's a mini series, and this was aired on the BBC this Christmas, and then it was released on Netflix.
Right.
And it has an all-star cast, and it was 4 episodes of the
was it James McAvoy and who is
James McAvoy, Nicholas Holt, John Boyega,
Bigwig.
I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, they definitely
so much talent.
They definitely spent the majority of the budget on this voice cast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think for sure. So what was your overall thoughts about this miniseries?
So I'm going to be kind of annoying and gushing over this, because I loved it. I loved it. Not as unique as the original, for sure. But I didn't go in expecting that. To me, I mean, there are differences that we'll go over, and there were little things that I liked and didn't like, but overall, I loved it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I didn't really like it very much. Yeah, to be honest. I mean, I liked the voice cast, but I just felt kind of similar to the recent adaptation of Wrinkle in Time. I felt like it just sort of lost the heart and soul of Watership Down, and I felt like they took away any of sort of the some of the choices they made, sort of took away a lot of the sort of spirit and the spirituality, the deeper meanings, and I just find it very forgettable. Like I watched it on Christmas Day, and in preparing my notes for this, like I really struggled to remember anything about it.
Wow.
And I had to go back and sort of look at notes and look at a couple different articles and stuff to remember. Whereas like the original film is so memorable, like you never forget it.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
This just felt so bland to me, which I think is a big bummer.
Yeah. And bland is not good.
Yeah, and there were some other stuff that I just didn't like the choices they made, that I thought took away, that just made it kind of bland. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of people really disliked the animation. I'm willing to be more forgiving on that, because I don't mind sort of bad CG animation, but it wasn't great.
I thought, like, I think, I liked the animation overall. Like, I thought some of the shots were really good. But then I did kind of think, like, some of the camera work was a little weird. Like some of the panning, and I don't know, like some of it did look very artificial to me.
Well, I mean, it's just sort of low grade CGI that looks sort of cheap, and I mean, I'm usually pretty forgiving of that kind of CGI, but I don't know, it's just hard when the 1978 film, the animation is just so memorable. It's so striking, and I would rather see this sort of more sketchy style of the original film than this sort of pseudo realistic version. A lot of the animation felt, a lot of it was very dark, and they didn't do a very good job of making the individual rabbits like have unique characteristics, so that you could really tell them apart, so that you knew who was who in scenes.
Yeah, and I do agree with you on that. Like, sometimes I was kind of like, is that Bluebell, or is that Strawberry, or is that... Yeah, okay, I agree with you.
Yeah. And
I totally agree, though.
Yeah, and I think they maybe could have cut out some of the celebrity voices and spent a little more money on the animation.
Yeah.
I think.
I think they should have just gotten me to voice one of them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have had to pay me.
Yeah.
Then they could have just put all that money into animation.
Yeah.
Heck, I would have done it.
Like, they definitely for sure didn't need Peter Capaldi to be that was a very strange choice for KR. It was just unnecessary, and I don't know, I just think that it just made it all kind of forgettable to me, and I wish they had been a little more creative, I guess, with it. But let's kind of dive in.
Sure.
So a lot of the lore of El Hara and sort of that spirituality that's so prominent in the 1978 film and also the book is gone in this version.
Yeah, you got like a bit on episode 1. They kind of talked about Frith and the creation of the rabbits, which I really liked that opening with the silhouetted rabbits and the narration. I liked that, but I mean, yeah,
it wasn't quite the same. It was kind of a that Fiverr was just kind of, I don't know, he wasn't like as much as of sort of a prophet of a field as he is in the book, and he kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better thing, like in my church we have one of the stories is about this prophet named Nephi, who has this his father has this vision that they need to leave Jerusalem, and it's hard. Like two of the brothers really struggle with this, and two of the brothers are like obedient and agree. And I've always sort of thought of Fiverr kind of similar to Lehigh, and there's sort of that sort of, there was sort of that prophetic kind of feeling to him, where I don't know, I feel like they just kind of missed on that sort of
interesting
spirituality of the character. I don't know.
They totally. I don't know. I don't want to use the word like dumbed it down, but I think they.
Yes.
I think you're right. Like in a way. I mean, I didn't so much mind that. I guess because I think they still had the visions and they did have the fields covered in blood. At one of the scenes, and I was happy that they kept that. But yeah, I do see where you're coming from for sure.
Yeah, because they changed Fiverr, Hazel, and Bigwig are changed quite a bit. And made less interesting to me, especially Bigwig. I felt like he was I felt like he was just kind of a one-note angry bully the whole time. Like he didn't have that. Oh. Yeah, he didn't have that like moments where he was sort of. I feel like in the 1970 film, he's a little bit grumpy, but like he's also, I don't know, I feel like he's more nuanced than he is in here.
And it's funny, I actually, I do agree with you with that on the original, but I really liked Bigwig in this version. I don't know if it's just because I'm a fan of tough guys in movies. But he was probably like my second favorite character out of all the.
I mean, John Boyega does a good job, but I don't know. I just felt like he was just kind of
interesting. Okay.
Just kind of one note, but he didn't really have any of those. Like in the original film, he has sort of a charisma about him that you can see why people would sort of want to follow him, and as opposed to just being a jerk.
Yeah, and, I see.
You know, because like people that are sort of successful tyrants, for lack of a better word.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's too strong for Bigwig, but
but
people that are like that are also super charming. You know, when you meet them, you are usually sort of charmed by them. You want to, but then they have this bully sort of side to them, and he's kind of a bully for me. And I also felt like Hazel, most of his sort of best qualities in the book are kind of given to other characters. And so he's just kind of, I felt like he was just kind of bland. He wasn't, he was kind of irritating at points too. Like he wasn't he's such a hopeful, lovely character.
They made him a little more bland, I guess.
Yeah, I think they did make him.
Yeah.
And you're not really rooting for him the way that you are in the other film in the book. In the book, he's so you feel so much for him and you want him. But in this, I felt like they were all kind of all sort of macho guys. And it
I'm having so many funny images right now. Macho rabbits. But
I don't know. They all felt kind of the same to me.
I do agree with you to a point, but there was a moment in episode 4, not to bounce around too much. But there was a moment where he gave a really good speech. I don't know if you remember that or not. He kind of gave it before the war on the Warren and all that.
Yeah.
And I loved that. Like, to me, he was kind of bland, but then on episode 4, once he gave that speech, I was kind of with him. So I kind of had I didn't like him. And then at the end, I was like, oh crap, like that speech was delivered so well.
Yeah, episode 4 was probably the best part because honestly, I was like episode 3, I was not very interested in what was going on.
Yeah.
But episode 4, then I kind of got back awake and got interested.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
I thought that battle was pretty good.
Yeah, now it's funny that you say that about episode 3 because I loved episode 3. But there were, I don't know if it was episode 3 where Strawberry rescued Hazel from, I believe it was.
Yes. Yeah.
So that, and again, I think we're jumping around, but I guess it's fine. But again, like I was not a huge fan of that per se.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind Hazel falling in love, I guess, but like I was kind of like, well, I was indifferent, let's say. I guess I wasn't enthralled with it. I wasn't happy with it. I was just kind of
I didn't like that at all. This love story between Hazel and Clover. That was just not as interesting because like the original story, he's motivated by higher ideals. He's motivated by romance. Yeah, it's not as good.
Okay.
I don't think. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more of that. I just felt like all of Hazel's best qualities were sort of given to other characters, and he was just kind of like bossy and irritating.
Yeah.
Which I didn't like because I think that Hazel is a very hopeful, wonderful character that I want to succeed and that I love. And you get they also get. How did you feel about them getting rid of Pipkin and Silver?
I was pretty indifferent about it, to be honest with you. I don't think I was okay with it, I guess. I mean, I was okay with it. I didn't. There were the things that they changed. I was either kind of indifferent about or didn't really like. Like I didn't hate anything about it. Let's say. I was indifferent though.
Okay. How did you feel about KR?
I liked him better in this version than in the animated version, to be honest. In the previous version.
Really?
I know.
Interesting. What did you like better?
I'm gonna get hate comments.
No.
Well, I liked his voice better, honestly. I liked his accent better.
Oh, interesting. Why did you? What about it worked for you?
I think so. In the original, I thought his voice was a little irritating. And I think in this one, he was a little more toned down. He had a thick accent, but it wasn't like he wasn't like squawking and like, So I don't know. I liked his voice better in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. That's interesting. I felt. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, I'm just too stuck on the original. Sure. But with Kahar, what's interesting kind of about him is that he speaks a totally different language. Like it's not even it's his own language, and so then it's really hard for them to communicate. And they have to kind of work at it in order to communicate. And like a Scottish accent isn't the same as that.
I gotcha. Okay.
And I don't know. I just feel like it kind of made it more bland. But I didn't hate it. It was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a fine job, Peter Capaldi.
I guess my thing in Kihar was that he was more in this series. He was more how I pictured him in the book.
Okay. And he can be kind of irritating in that original one. I
think they kind of did too many goofy things with him in the original. Like they tried to up the comedic relief a little too much, which I mean, in overall this series, as you say, it has kind of the lighting isn't quite as bright, and I kind of almost prefer the more somber tone that they took with this. But I guess that's to each his own kind of thing. Just two different styles of. Because again, I love the original. I'm in no way knocking it or saying what they did was bad, but the series overall was more how I pictured the book, I suppose.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I can see that. I don't know. I just felt like this was just not as. I felt like it was more rote and more just kind of. It didn't have that uniqueness and that like thing you're really like. the other one is more sort of high art and leaves you kind of thinking with all these layers about what have I just watched. And I think that that this, I mean, in a weird way, I think that if you, maybe it might be a better one to sort of introduce people to the idea of Watership Down is watching this, because it's more just sort of basic. It's not as weird. It's not as different. It's not as strange. I don't know, which as the other one, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally got you. Yeah. But to me, this was a little more linear, I guess would be the word.
Yeah.
But I think there were certain, I mean, again, it was, I guess maybe I was more thinking about the book than the original movie, because there's no way you could replicate the original movie.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Like, I mean, I have a soft spot for the original too. I mean, it's so brilliant. And so, but I was thinking more of this as like, okay, they're going to take the book and do their own thing with it, ignoring the original film. So I was kind of more thinking, okay, like overall, how is this different from the book, and how is this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I love about the book is I think it has so many layers, and I can just like read it each time and get something, have a different experience. Whereas I feel like I have no desire to ever watch this again. Like, I mean, it didn't. It sound like it's the worst thing ever, and it's not. It just was very bland to me.
Mediocre, I guess.
Yeah, it was. It was just very bland to me. It didn't have those layers. It wasn't as interesting, and I feel like I could watch the original film over and over again and get different things out of it over and over again. Whereas this, it was just kind of, but I don't know. It's interesting, and I mean, they changed the they have this fight with the crow, which is in is in the book, but not. It's not quite as long. It's not quite the same.
First, so you're talking about when they enter like that weird wooden, like it was like a castle or something, and then I don't know how I felt about. I liked the sequence, but you know, and I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I guess I was indifferent about it.
Yeah,
I kind of was like, oh, this is how they're like. To me, it wasn't big enough to really like. It was a good scene. I just
it was okay.
That it bothered me, I guess.
It was just very like, I just felt like they have a very sort of aggressive masculine tone to this version. Would you agree?
Yes. Yes, in a way.
Like, all the characters are kind of aggressive, I think, and all kind of like
in bad moods.
Yeah, even like Fiverr and Hazel are kind of a little more masculine.
And maybe, and that is one thing I agree with you on. I would have maybe liked Hazel to be a little softer.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, as I say, in episode 4, he does that speech, and I loved him.
Yeah.
But I wish he,
sooner.
I can totally see where you're coming from. And I think it really worked for Bigwig in certain situations, like, you know, certainly in episode 3, bouncing around again, when, you know, when he has to invade General Woundwart's warren, you know, I loved all that, but anyway, we'll discuss that when we get to
it. So the
Cowslip was next, wasn't he?
Yeah, Cowslip, and I felt like this was an okay sequence.
Sure.
But I didn't think that it was sort of as creepy as it could have been. I mean,
because I expected, like, I liked it, what they did, but I expected it to be creepier. I think in the original it was, like, his voice and the way he looked was just like, there was something wrong with this guy. You know? Well, so I totally agree. I expected that to be creepier. But I liked it. And I liked that weird, I don't know if it was in the book, but it was the weird scene where they're all around that sparkling gem and they're all like chanting.
Yeah, that was weird. I don't think that is in the book.
I don't think it is, but I actually really liked that. I think that upped the creepiness for me, definitely. But yeah, I agree. I think Cowslip should have been a little eerier.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's supposed to be kind of a cult leader.
Yeah,
and I don't think that you really got that here.
Yes. As my dad called him, a creeper when we were watching the Netflix show. He should be a creeper.
Yeah, and it was just kind of. What do you think about them changing Strawberry to female?
I think Strawberry is a more female name for a rabbit. So, to me, I'm not gender stereotyping, but
I agree that is a little bit more of a feminine name, but I didn't like it because it lessens the motivation for leaving the down when they get there.
That was my biggest pet peeve with the series, definitely.
Because why would you be motivated to, if you have a doe there, like it's
right
because yes, maybe they would want more than one, but in the book, like it's actually a sort of an unselfish thing that they're doing.
Totally agree
because they could just sort of relax and not care about future generations, but they do care about future generations, and so they decide to go and to the Ephrafa and and get the does because they do care. And I don't know, it just sort of lessens that motivation. Totally. If there's a doe there, like it's not as good.
Right. And I totally agree with you. And that right there was my biggest, like, that's the biggest thing that I didn't like about the series. Like, why? Because, like, in the original, I believe, wasn't there a girl rabbit and then she got killed in the original film? And then that's why they had to get more does? I could be mistaken, but I don't know. Maybe I remember. But anyway, I totally agree with you on that. That was a big mistake to introduce a female that early into the story. They should have just had the one that was locked in the little box on the farm, and just kept Strawberry male or take him out entirely.
Yeah,
so,
and
totally agree.
And I don't know. Yeah, then the whole desperation behind going to the Ephrafa and going, and trying to, rescue them. Like, it just has more motivation.
Sure.
More interesting.
More peril.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when they find out what happened in the original Warren,
right,
that this was definitely not nearly as good as in the 1978 film. I mean, that's one of the most memorable and haunting images of that film is that image of the bunnies in the tunnel getting killed.
No, you're right. I totally remember that in the original.
And and they realized that Fiver truly was a prophet, that he and in this, like, it was just kind of like it was like, oh man, came and like what?
And I totally agree. And to back you up a little bit, I was going to mention the bigwig choking scene. And I liked that better in this version. For one reason, the original, they added so much blood to him when he was choking. I thought it was a little weird that he lost that much blood from choking on a wire. I think in this version, it was a much more realistic depiction of what choking would look like.
I can see that. Yeah. That image of all the bunnies in the tunnel getting gas, basically.
Oh man. Yeah.
That is so memorable in the original film, and in this it was just kind of,
they showed flashes of it, but it wasn't,
it's like big bad man.
Yeah.
I mean, and they later on they have a man saving Fiver.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, what? Why do they have that?
Yeah.
I didn't like that at all.
Once we get to the ending, I will clear that up for you.
Ooh, okay, good. And it's like, you don't have to. I think that there's this thing now that you have to make every villain sympathetic, and you have to show their backstory, and you have to whatever. And I hate it. That kind of irritates me, because there's some value in just having villains and having a story about good versus evil. And what are you going to sort of side on? And in this, so they try to give Woundwort this backstory of like why he is the way he is, and I'm just kind of like, no.
That was my second biggest pet peeve. They did not need to show anything about General Woundwort other than he's a brute.
Yeah, no, they didn't.
I totally agree with you that, in fact, if I could go back and edit the series, that if I could have been an editor, I would have been like, you cannot show this. Like, keep it on a deleted scene on a DVD or whatever, but this totally kind of just softens General Woundwort.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Ben Kingsley did a really good job with voicing him.
Mm-hmm.
I got chills a few times, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, showing his backstory was and as I say, the second thing that I really didn't like about it.
Yeah,
they could have easily cut that out in favor of of whatever, like I don't know what you could have shown instead to lengthen the episode, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't. It's like, you don't have to redeem the humans. You don't have to redeem Woundwort. You can just have an interesting. There's more sort of biblical, if for lack of a better word, to sort of have this idea of people fighting evil, and that you have these characters that are more sort of pure and innocent, facing up against these things that truly do want to take them down, that truly do,
that they're just psychologically messed up. They're just like that.
Yeah, they're not as they're not like just like, there are things in this world, at least I believe, that are evil. That there are that and to try to kind of like someone like Hitler is evil, and the attempt to kind of make, I don't know, to make it sort of a tragic backstory on everybody. I don't know. I just don't think it's really very sort of narratively as interesting as when you're sort of, I don't know. It just depends on how it's handled, I guess.
And I think that's one of the draws to fantasy for me, that I love the good versus evil thing. That, sure, maybe the bad guy isn't explained very well, but you have something like Lord of the Rings, which does it so well, in my opinion, with Sauron, and, he's just evil.
It's this thing of modern storytelling that's like, we have to make the hero really conflicted, like you're like Superman and Batman v Superman, kind of. We can't make him a hero. We can't make him like a symbol of hope, a symbol of goodness. We have to make him all this. I don't know this.
Yeah, and I like a good mix. Like, I think there are some characters that really should be that symbol of hope that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But then I think some, like, I also love a good vigilante too. So I think you need a mix of both.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the case of Watership Down, a straight good versus evil story is what it needed, I think.
Yeah, because it has that sort of epic feel to it. And
Lord of the Rings with bunnies, as I say.
Yeah. And so I don't know. It's interesting. I agree. And so they have then you have Holly goes back to the farm. Hazel kind of reluctantly agrees. He's not as much of a leader in this series as he
could be a leader, but
it's like, I don't know. It's interesting.
I gotcha.
And so and like I said, I really disliked the Hazel and Clover thing.
Right. So Hazel gets shot by the farmer.
Yeah.
And then in the beginning of was it episode 3? I think
so. Yeah.
Where Strawberry. Yeah, I was indifferent about it. Like, I mean, I I would have liked
because it's
Fiverr
less
better.
interesting motivation, like when he's going back for Hazel, and because he really believes in Hazel, that's more interesting motivation than because he is in love or something. I don't know.
Now okay, so here's an interesting question then. What if they if they wanted romance, what if they had added Strawberry to the original Warren and had Hazel and her hanging out in a few scenes?
Yeah.
And you had, I mean, I don't know.
Do they meet Strawberry along? So they meet Strawberry along the way.
They meet her, I think, didn't they meet her in Cowslip's Warren?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So if they had Strawberry in the opening, in like the first episode, you had Hazel and Fiverr as a brotherly love.
Yeah.
And then you had Hazel and Strawberry, which, they were attracted to each other, and, show them.
That could have been a little bit better. Definitely better than Hazel and Clover.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Even I can't remember these names. Yeah. Clover, right. Okay. Show them going out to eat, or Okay, well, maybe not that, but
they kind of changed the dog. How did you feel about them changing the dog?
How did they? You mean in what way?
The whole like dog that's sort of loose in the wood scene is gone.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think in the original it makes more sense on why they did it.
Yeah, they also get rid of the boat scene.
That's right. Yeah, there is no boat.
And there's no boat scene.
Right. Yeah.
And then they have Fiverr rescued by a human, which I was not a fan of.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
How did you feel about them toning down the violence quite a bit?
So, they definitely toned down the violence. However, I think in turn what you get is more realistic violence, if that makes any sense. Less bloody and more punches and bruises and hits, and like obviously if someone goes to punch someone, it's not gonna you're not gonna have blood flying everywhere like a geyser. But I guess in the rabbit's case they bite, so maybe I would have liked a little more blood as far as the biting, I guess. If that makes sense. But I think the fighting was a little more, I think while it was toned down, it was a little more realistic.
A little more visceral.
Yeah. And I think the violence in the original, I think it serves that version of the story because it's kind of, as you say, it's weird and it's kind of like out there and it's kind of mystical and kind of, but I think in this version, I kind of preferred the less bloody and more... and the more getting down and dirty and
Yeah, I mean, I can see that because it is trying for that realism that that having the super bloody might actually kind of hurt that realism.
I think it does. Like the fighting, the climactic scene of the General Woundwort attacking the Watership Down, I thought was really well done. And I felt so bad, like, I don't know, because the rabbits to me in some of those shots looked so real that they weren't hand drawn. They were they were CGI, so I felt like legit bad sometimes when I see all the
I mean, you definitely can sometimes feel some of that. And what did you think about the sort of questions about the sort of the way they handled loyalty in the story? In the third episode, the female rabbits get kind of are sort of struggling whether they're going to be loyal to these new these new people, these new
I gotcha
to Fiverr in particular.
Yeah, so you're talking about in General Woundwort's Warren, the female. Well, and so I think in that case, they had been so psychologically damaged that it would be hard for them to trust a few rabbits who just came out from the outside. And I think, they handled that well. Like the people in General Woundwort's plays, they had been so broken mentally and so, and physically scarred that I think the fact that they didn't trust them was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it made sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty good. I liked that. They have sort of a weird scene where Bluebell tries to kiss Blackberry. That was sort of strange.
Yeah, right. I was thinking, my dad and I just kind of both looked at each other and did I just hear that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not against two male rabbits getting together, but it was an odd. It was yeah. I mean, I don't know what the point of it was. Like in the end, if they had shown them, still flying together romantically, I would have said fine. Yeah, I didn't really get the whole thing.
Yeah, it was weird.
Was it a stance on LGBT for rabbits? Like I have no idea. I really
like you don't have to do everything in every movie. Like
yeah, no,
kind of like it felt forced. It felt kind of forced.
Yeah, it did. No, I agree. And again, I mean, it wouldn't have felt forced if you had just a small snippet of them hanging out and playing and whatever. Sure, maybe they are attracted to each other, but like just to add that and then have nothing after it, like why? Yeah. No, I agree with you. It was a very odd line.
Yeah. I do think though that the final episode probably was the strongest. The attack on the new Warren that they have Woundwort and I thought that whole sort of battle sequence was pretty good.
I don't know. Was it Captain Holly who died in the battle?
I can't remember, but I think so.
That was really handled very well, I thought. I didn't expect it. Now, maybe it happened in the book and I just don't remember it. But it was something that was really kind of left field. And I liked how they depicted it because in war, like, good people die. So I'm kind of glad, like, so I kind of liked
casualties.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just, for me, for some reason that, this miniseries just kind of rang flat for me. I just thought that it was just very forgettable and very,
okay.
It was just not my favorite. And there were some positive things about it, particularly the voice acting, I think, and some of the moments of, but I don't know, I just feel like the original had so much more heart and was so much more creative, and I mean, even just having Bright Eyes in there was just so much more hopeful and lovely, and this was just sort of more bland.
Sure, yeah. So them taking out Bright Eyes, at first I was kind of like, really, you're gonna take that out? But I think this version again is like, so they're trying to distance themselves from the original and do like their own thing with it. Like the end credits song for each episode, I really liked it. It was Sam Smith, Fire on Fire. I really liked it. I mean, it wasn't as memorable as Bright Eyes for sure. And Sam Smith doesn't have the vocal talent that Art Garfunkel has, but I enjoyed it. I thought it fit the mood of this series. And I think Bright Eyes fit the mood of the original film.
But I don't know. Like the whole message of this is that like all life deserves respect, and that and that even like the human girl saves them.
Right, I was going to mention that.
And that even Woundwort has value and all that stuff, and which is a fine message, but I don't think it's as interesting as sort of the political the sort of socio-political kind of message, and this idea, this sort of more spiritual message. I feel like it's more bland message than the more deeper spiritual message of the book.
So as I said, I totally agree with you on General Woundwort. He should have just been straight evil. Now the girl saving Fiverr, I think, was kind of realistic. Like I can picture a human doing that, and how they like, at the beginning you had the Warren being destroyed by man, and then at the end, it's a message of hope. Like, well, not all humans are bad. I didn't mind that. Unnecessary, maybe, but I thought it was handled fine. Because I can totally picture it. Like, I mean, me myself, if I saw a rabbit hurt, I I would run out and see what was going on.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about the design of the rabbits? We probably should have talked about this earlier, but a lot of people have complained that they really look more like hares and not rabbits. The design and like their foot paws and other things like that they don't actually look like rabbits.
So I'm definitely not an expert on hares and rabbits, but I had to look at a side-by-side picture after I watched the series, and I totally agree with that. Like the problem was that they were too big, right?
Mm-hmm. And size. Just the design, the way that a hare looks is more sort of stretched out.
Yeah, it was something that was so last minute for me. I didn't really have time to think about it, but I don't know if it hurts it too much.
Yeah, I didn't really mind that, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean,
that was fine for me. If they're hares or rabbits, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, as long as they keep the similar, I mean, they're essentially rabbit. I mean, they're part of the same like family, so I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that on Bigwig they kept his little tuft of hair.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big fan of it.
Yeah. What did you think about the ending with the black rabbit appearing?
Oh.
And that was nice.
Yes. Oh, I really liked that. And how the camera panned up and the cloud looked like a rabbit. Mm-hmm. The feels.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely trying to show, like that death is not something to be scared of, and that, that he had lived a good life and kind of thing.
Yeah, I really liked that. And I really liked how she visited him after he got shot to establish that whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like, well, you're not ready to join my warren yet. Like, you still have more to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I get visited by a rabbit when I'm about to die, I'll be happy.
Yeah, black rabbit.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll join your warren. I'm kind of tall, but but anyway, yeah. No, I liked that.
Did you have any other parts that stood out to you?
You know what I loved I liked episode 3 as a whole. I liked how dark and kind of grim it was. Mm-hmm. There was a scene where Bigwig he was going to kill one of the female rabbits outside. Uh-huh. And then that song started playing. One of the rabbits started singing. It's a really haunting song, and I loved that. I thought it was like so effective.
Yeah, that was good. I liked that.
Like that episode was so bleak. And then the contrast with episode 4, which was like, okay, like the good guys are going to triumph here a little bit. It really worked.
That's interesting. Yeah, because on one hand, I was feeling like that episode 4 was the more bleak one because it's the big battle. But you're right. It's not necessarily true because it is more of a good versus evil kind of battle.
Yeah, episode 3 is like the bad guys have won almost.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And for a kid who hasn't read the book, or seen the original, that would be really suspenseful.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this would encourage people to read the book?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think if you love the series, I think so.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, it depends how old the person is.
Because the original 1978 film, it definitely encourages you to read the book because it doesn't like explain everything. It leaves some things it leaves things for you to kind of wonder about because it's only 90 minutes or whatever. Yeah. And so they can't, and it's more, there's sort of more things. I think I would definitely feel like, wow, there's a lot I don't understand, or there's a lot that, and so I really need to read the book to kind of get the, compared to this.
I think, the two styles of storytelling are so different.
Yeah.
I think ultimately you'll have people now who say they either like the original or this one better, depending on just what kind of thing they like.
Yeah.
I find merit in both. But I think I think if someone really loved this series, I don't see why they wouldn't want to read the book after.
Yeah.
Because the book has a lot that the series didn't either. Yeah. 4 episodes, each an hour long. I mean, they fit a lot in there, and some of it unnecessary. And I think I was reading your notes last night, and I think you had mentioned that the opening, they rushed it too much. With Fiverr.
Yeah, it felt a little bit rushed, I think.
So I would have liked that to be maybe like a good maybe like 20 minutes, maybe, maybe even 30, if we're talking, Yeah. They have 4 episodes to do it. So, But
Interesting.
I'm definitely going to reread the book this year, though.
I know, I need to. Because it's been a while. It's been a couple of years since I read it.
I I read it in middle school, so.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, last time I read it was for book club, and that was, I don't know, 3-4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So I need to read it again because I mean, because I love it, and there's so many details that you forget. But so overall, how if you were giving it if there's 5 stars, how many stars would you give it?
How many rabbits do I give it?
Rabbits, yeah, 5 rabbits.
Man, that's those quite. My dad asks me the same stuff after movies, and it's like so hard for me to like pinpoint exactly the amount of I'm gonna say 4 out of 5 because I'm gonna delete 1 star just because of some of the plot choices were not what I would have liked. If I had been directing this, I think we would have been talking an Oscar nominated.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe the animation wouldn't have been as good with stick figures, but
yeah,
I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5.
I'd give it more like 2.
Wow.
it just didn't do a whole lot for me. I didn't like it very much, and I recognize some. It's not like a 0. Like it has some positive things about it, but really, to me, the best thing about it was the voice cast. It wasn't my favorite animation. I didn't really like some of the choices. I feel like it's just kind of bland.
That was kind of why I deleted that 1 star too. Yeah. Like some of the animation choices were a little weird. Like some of it just looked off.
Like it's kind of jerky and it's kind of, and if I had loved it, then I could have ignored those animation choices just fine. But I don't know. I just as a whole, as a whole, it wasn't my favorite. But I think they did try. I just wish they had I just feel like they made it some of the choices I felt like they made to me made it a little bit more bland and less memorable than what I would have liked.
It wasn't as unique.
Yeah.
And definitely. I totally will agree with you. It wasn't as weird or as, and that's why I do really, I love both of them almost equally, but the original just has that flair to it that a modern series couldn't really capture.
Like you can see why Guillermo del Toro was just watched that original film and was just so inspired.
Oh yeah.
And I just don't imagine anybody really having that experience.
Getting that same. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, but anyway, they tried, so. I wasn't angry. I was just kind of but we did get some comments on my Twitter about it. Yes. So including one very long comment. So we have Eli Sansa says it was a good show, more mature than most animated series, also felt true to the spirit of the book. So there you go.
I agree.
So Richard Southworth says the animation was poor, the voice acting was good, the story was enough of the original book to still be worth watching, but I didn't like most of the changes, especially to Kahar's character. So he's more, I think, more mixed, as kind of more like me. So then we have a commenter named Jonah Hawking, and he says the animation wasn't terrible, although it's obvious they did little to no study of rabbits. They'd stand like hares, they gave them foot pads, and the gait was off, just a lot of little things that wouldn't have mattered on their own but added up. It made for an unsettling subject matter in their animation. The animation could have slid by, but the theme of the book was what really made me angry with this miniseries. Richard Adams was an animal rights activist. His next most famous book after Watership Down is Plague Dogs. If you want to truly bawl your eyes out and then storm into a nearby laboratory, this is the book for you. And this is the point being, Adams very much wanted to emphasize that humans are awful, and because they wanted to harm rabbits, but in the words of Holly, they just don't care. Adams shows through the destruction of Sandalford Cowslip's den, that the religious Warren, through the farm, through Woundwart's actions, that humans are bad, flat out. Maybe if They are the greatest enemy of rabbits. The show forgot that theme. They even sidestepped it, making a specific point of maybe not all humans are bad. Fiverr was no part of the running team because he was the weakest. He was the trope of the waif prophet. He's small and weak, but still the Warren's greatest asset. They completely squashed his regular role, but just so they could get in there, not all humans are bad. That to me was the greatest issue of the miniseries. The animation was palatable. The voice acting was good. The music choices were interesting, but the theme was a completely different, destroyed mess because the studio didn't like feeling the guilt that Adams intended people to feel. And he says, I've ranted on for more than enough, so I'll leave it at that. But if so there you go.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. So this person makes some really interesting points, and I think in terms of, now I don't know if you've read The Plague Dogs or seen.
I actually haven't.
So Watership Down, to me, it's like you have two different like stories. You have Watership Down, which is a story of epic high fantasy and hope, and as I say, I was a fan of how they said, well, not all humans are bad. Now, Plague Dogs is a very grim story. This person was not kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading this book and I was just like, I don't know if I can like do this. Like, it does show the evilness of humans and animals. So I think Watership Down is meant for hope, and Plague Dogs is more about the grimness of humans and how awful we are to animals. Two different messages, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been meaning to watch that. I just haven't had the chance, but I'd like to.
I've heard so bad.
Yeah, it's like, super intense.
I watched it on a whim, like not even preparing for it. And at the end, I was just like, I need to take a walk or something. Like, this is like, it's painful, but it's excellent. I mean, it's, the depressing aspect of it is what makes it amazing. So I would say to that person that, I can see why that person might be more of a fan of the Plague Dogs, just because it's a grimmer, more somber message. Watership Down to me is not that, though.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I never got a real animal rights activist from Watership Down, which just shows how many layers there are to the story. I mean, that's what's so great about it. And this was definitely, it's just sort of not as layered. It wasn't as interesting. And I it's interesting what he says about Fiverr, because I did feel like they kind of made him, the idea that you really didn't get that idea in this one, sort of about him being sort of needing to be protected because he was special.
Gotcha.
In this as much as in the original, because he is this sort of weak, he calls it the waif prophet, but even though he's the weakest, he truly is the greatest asset to the Warren. And I think that's a really interesting point. And in this, they were all just kind of all sort of strong and all kind of masculine, I felt like. And you didn't get that same kind of a feeling, which is, I don't know, which is interesting, I think.
Yeah.
I
think, as I say, I think it worked for Bigwig, but I don't know if it worked for Fiverr and Hazel so much.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to rewatch the series with your thoughts in mind and see if, maybe I had my my rose-colored glasses on.
No, I mean...
but no, I gotcha.
No, I see your points as well. And maybe I was just... Who knows? I mean, it was Christmas. I should have been in a really good mood, but maybe I was just in a bad mood. And nitpicking. Maybe I'm just too tied to the original.
Yeah. To each his own kind of thing too. Yeah. I mean, while I loved it, I also admit that there are little flaws.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like watching Maleficent where I wanted to die.
Oh my God.
I didn't hate it. I just thought
I wanted to walk out of Maleficent and I really should have.
Yeah, it was anyway, horrible. And but this was just kind of bland for me. Like, it's a different experience. Like when you watch something and you're like, oh, I'm so angry, this was terrible, versus like watching something you're like,
Yeah. Gotcha. No, I totally gotcha. Yeah. To each his own, I guess,
Yeah.
I'm just in that category where I loved it more than some reviewers did.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it's good to have the conversation. But yeah, I appreciate Jonah making the comment, and it's really interesting. So I'd be curious to know what he thinks about our discussion. And And yeah, let us know in the comment section what you think about this series. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you kind of what are you in between? Let us know. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I had kind of forgotten a lot about it. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. So anyway, let us know what you think, and of the original, of the book, of how the changes they made, because they did make quite a few changes, which is fine. But some of them I think worked better than others.
I wish Richard Adams was alive. I would love to hear his thoughts.
I know.
Like, just, would he have totally said that they missed the point, or would he have been, I don't know. Like, it would have been.
Do you know if he liked the original film? Do you know?
It's something I've never really looked at. I don't know if that information's out there. I don't know if he ignored it. I don't, I really have no idea, honestly.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know.
Yeah.
If any of you know, and put in the comment section, or let us know on Twitter what you think. That would be great. And so, yeah, it was an interesting attempt, and it's a tough property. I will give him that. That's very difficult.
Yeah, it is.
So, anyway, that was great. Thanks so much for talking about this with me. It was a lot of fun. I was kind of maybe a little nervous, just because I'm like, it's just a lot to cover the 4, but I think it turned out really good. It was good.
I think so too. Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
So where can people find you, social media and online and all that fun stuff?
So if you type in Equus21 on Twitter, EQUUS, and then the numbers 21, you'll find me. I'm actually a writer and filmmaker.
Yes.
So I've written a lot of animal-centered short stories and made some films myself. A lot of it inspired by Watership Down, I won't lie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and you have a YouTube channel, right?
I do. Yeah, Equus21 on YouTube.
Yeah. So you guys got to check that out. I'll have links in the description section. It's a lot of fun, sort of horror inspired kind of shorts and different things like that. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So, you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, and you can find me on Rotten Tomatoes, which is insane and
craziness.
Yeah. So, let us know what you thought, and thanks again, and we will have to talk.
I'd love to.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So, anyway, we'll talk again soon, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Goodbye.